The message arrived without origin. No carrier wave. No quantum signature. No identifiable transmission medium. It simply appeared simultaneously inside every high-security diplomatic channel across the Galactic Imperial network. At first, analysts assumed it was a cascade failure. Then, the Imperial Core Intelligence realized something impossible. The message had not been transmitted. It had been written directly into reality. In the capital system of the Aurelian Galactic Empire, the administrative world Verex Prime glowed like a jewel beneath its layered orbital habitats. Endless rings of warships and data relays surrounded the planet like a crown of steel and light. Inside the grand strategic chamber, a dozen species gathered around a sphere of shifting star maps. The Empire was ancient, powerful, absolute. It had conquered or absorbed over 9,000 civilizations. There were no rivals. There were no unknowns. There were no surprises. Until now. The sphere flickered. The message appeared again. White text, black background. No encryption, no translation needed. Because it had already been translated into every known language. And several that no one remembered creating. Earth system status. Restricted. All Imperial operations within Sol territory are to cease immediately. This is a final warning. Humanity's silence filled the chamber. Then laughter. Ambassador Troll of the Velkar Dominion, eight-limbed diplomat, whose species had once attempted resistance before becoming a loyal Imperial vassalette, out a chittering wave of amusement. Humans. Troll clicked. The pre-FTL industrial species. The one catalogued 2 cycles ago. A data officer confirmed. Correct. Designation, Southry, technological level. Early digital, limited orbital capability. No extrasolar presence detected. General Kale Var, Supreme Commander of Imperial Expeditionary Forces, did not laugh. Repeat the origin analysis, he ordered. We have, replied the intelligence node. No transmission source detected. No physical relay. The message appeared directly inside secured systems. That is impossible. Yes, General. Kael'var stared at the text. A primitive species had just spoken to the Empire as if it were an equal, worse, as if it were issuing an order. Across the chamber, the Imperial Strategist, an ancient crystalline entity, known only as Archivist, Cell shifted its internal light patterns. Humanity. Cell said slowly. Catalog reference. Observational priority, low. Behavioral assessment. Cooperative, internally divided. Environmentally destructive. A display opened, showing footage from previous probe scans. Cities choked in pollution. Nation-states arguing over resources. Weapons pointed at themselves. Kael'var nodded. Yes, I remember the file. They were projected for self-extinction within 3 centuries. Cell dimmed slightly. And yet, the archivist continued. They have just accessed and altered a secured Imperial network without detectable infrastructure. Silence returned. Trull stopped laughing. The Emperor's voice entered the chamber. Not through speakers. Through the air itself. Explain. Every species present immediately lowered posture in instinctive submission. Kael'var spoke. A primitive species, your Radiance, has issued a territorial warning. No evidence of spacefaring capability. No military presence beyond their system. The Emperor paused, then asked a single question. Are they bluffing? The intelligence node answered. We do not know. That answer alone made the room colder. The Sol system had already been marked for future integration. Its location was strategically useful. Its biosphere rich. its native species intellectually promising but politically fragmented, ideal candidates for managed assimilation. A standard pre-contact evaluation fleet had been scheduled for arrival within 4 cycles. The warning had arrived 3 days before launch. General Kael'var studied the star map. "Proceed with evaluation," he said, "but upgrade to armed reconnaissance." The Emperor agreed. "Send the 7th Observer Fleet, minimal force, maximum surveillance." A symbol flashed across the display. Operation Quiet Horizon. 3 weeks later, the 7th Observer Fleet entered the outer edge of the Sol system. 23 ships, stealth configuration, non-hostile posture. Standard procedure. Commander Ilrex of the observer vessel Silent Measure initiated the first scan. He expected a primitive system. What he saw instead made his neural frill tighten. Earth's orbit was crowded, not with warships, with debris, thousands of satellites, fragments, old stations, abandoned hardware, primitive, chaotic, dangerous. The humans had filled their orbital space like an industrial junkyard. "Unregulated expansion," Ilrex muttered. "Typical early-stage species." But then the scan deepened, and he noticed something strange. Many of the dead satellites were powered, watching, waiting, dormant. "Commander," said the sensor officer, "we are being tracked." Ilrex frowned. "By what?" "Their military." "Unknown. No active targeting signals detected." Then how the answer appeared on the screen. The satellites weren't transmitting, they were reflecting. Microscopic adjustments to their surfaces were altering the fleet's own scanning, beams redirecting them back, reshaped into data patterns. The humans weren't broadcasting. They were writing messages into the Empire's sensors using the fleet's own energy. The first reflected pattern resolved into text. "You were warned." Ilrex ordered full-spectrum analysis. No weapons detected. No active defense grid. Just millions of pieces of orbital infrastructure working together like a silent nervous system. Then a new signal arrived. This one came from Earth itself. Visual transmission, unencrypted. A human appeared on the main display, female, middle-aged, calm. Behind her was no government seal, no military insignia, just a simple blue background. "Commander of the approaching fleet," she said. Her voice was steady. "You have entered restricted space. Please alter course immediately." Ilrex activated translation and replied, "This is an Imperial observer fleet. Your species is classified as pre-contact. You do not possess authority to deny entry." The woman did not react. "You misunderstand," she said. "This is not a request." Back on Varix Prime, the transmission was relayed to the strategic chamber. The Emperor watched. The human's eyes did not show fear. That alone was unusual. Most species trembled the first time they spoke to the Empire. General Kael'var leaned forward, asked her to clarify consequences, he ordered. The message was relayed. The woman nodded once. "If you proceed beyond the orbit of Mars," she said, "we will consider it an act of hostile incursion." "And your response?" Ilrex asked. The woman hesitated. "Not from uncertainty, from reluctance." "That depends," she said quietly, "on how many of you there are." The chamber on Varix Prime erupted in overlapping reactions. Arrogance, confusion, offense. Kael'var did not speak. Archivist's cell pulsed slowly. "That was not a threat," Cell observed. "No," Kael'var agreed. "That sounded like logistics." Ilrex advanced the fleet slightly. 1,000 kilometers inward. Testing. No weapons locks appeared. No energy buildup, nothing. Then one of the outer scout vessels vanished. No explosion, no radiation spike, no debris. It was simply gone. Status report, Ilrex demanded. Vessel 3 is no longer detectable. Destroyed, negative. No destruction signature. Then where is it? The sensor officer hesitated. We believe it was relocated. Coordinates appeared. The ship was now in high orbit around Jupiter, 70 million kilometers away. Instantly, back on Earth, the human woman spoke again. We asked you not to come closer, she said gently. Her expression carried something unexpected, not anger, not triumph, regret. On Varix Prime, the Emperor finally spoke. What are they? Archivist Cell answered slowly. We may have misclassified humanity. General Kael'var stared at the Sol System display. 23 ships. A primitive species. No visible fleet. No detectable weapons. And yet one Imperial vessel had been moved across half a planetary system without energy signature or warning. He felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. Then a new message appeared across every Imperial command channel. Not from the fleet. Not from Earth. From everywhere. Across the entire Imperial network. At once. Earth system status. Lockdown. Galactic Empire access denied. This is your final warning, and this time, the message included a timer. 0 hours, 9 minutes, and 59 seconds. The countdown had begun. The countdown did not stop. On every Imperial command interface, on every secure military channel, on diplomatic corps, on civilian networks, on archival systems older than many stars catalogued by the Empire. 0 hours, 8 minutes, and 47 seconds. The timer was not transmitted. It existed. The Imperial Cyber Directorate attempted to isolate it. They failed. They attempted to delete it. It reappeared. They attempted to disconnect affected systems. The timer continued. Even on machines that were no longer connected to any network. On Varix Prime, the Grand Strategic Chamber had shifted from curiosity to crisis. General Kael'var stood at the center of the starsphere, arms folded behind his armored frame. Status? He demanded. Cyber Director Malthakan, avian species, whose kind had once ruled 3 spiral arms before joining the Empire, spoke with visible strain. We are not under attack in any conventional sense. No data intrusion, no malicious code, no foreign processes. Then what is it? Kael'var asked. Malthak's feathers flattened. The countdown is being calculated locally. By what? We don't know. Archivist Cell pulsed with slow, analytical light. That implies the trigger condition exists within system logic itself. The room fell quiet. You mean, Ambassador Trull said slowly, our own infrastructure is running their program. Cell responded. No. I mean their influence is embedded at a physical level. Across the chamber, a secondary display showed live telemetry from the 7th Observer Fleet. Commander Ilrex had halted all forward motion. 22 ships remained in position near the outer asteroid belt. The missing vessels still orbited Jupiter, intact but unresponsive to command recall. Commander, Kael'var, transmitted. Report your situation. Ilrex's image appeared. His species communicated through subtle color changes across facial plates, and now those colors showed tension. We have attempted passive scans of the human homeworld, he said. Results are inconsistent. Inconsistent how? We detect their cities, their communications, their orbital infrastructure, their energy grid. That sounds normal. Ilrex hesitated. We also detect anomalies. The display shifted. Earth rotated slowly in view. Blue, white, fragile, primitive. Then the scan overlay activated, and everything changed. Energy readings appeared layered, faint, fluctuating. Not weapons, not shields. Patterns, vast patterns. Grids of synchronized electromagnetic activity spanning continents. Quantum noise fields localized around major population centers. Gravitational irregularities, so subtle they should have been impossible to detect at planetary scale. Are those artificial? Kael'var asked. Ilrex answered quietly. Yes. Archivist Cell's internal structure brightened. Magnify urban region, Cell instructed. The display zoomed toward a dense human city. From orbit, it looked chaotic, disorderly, primitive architecture, random infrastructure. But when the sensor overlay deepened, the structures began to align. Power grids synchronized, communication towers phase-linked, data centers resonating in coordinated cycles, millions of devices personnel, industriel, orbital operating in harmonic, timing patterns. Not centrally controlled, but cooperating. Cell processed for several seconds, then spoke. This is not infrastructure. What is it? Asked the Emperor. Cell's answer came slowly. This is a planetary-scale computation network. Ambassador Trull scoffed. Every advanced species develops planetary networks. Cell's light dimmed slightly. Yes, the archivist said. But this one is not designed for efficiency. The display shifted again. Patterns emerged, not optimized, not centralized, messy, redundant, overlapping, inefficient. Chaotic Cell continued. It is designed for resilience. On Earth, billions of independent systems operated without a single point of failure. Power grids that could fragment and reconnect. Communication networks that rerouted instantly through civilian devices. Manufacturing lines that could reconfigure overnight. Even personal electronics contributed processing power during coordinated cycles. Ilrex spoke again. We are observing distributed quantum processing emerging from consumer-level hardware. That is impossible, said Maldik. It should be, Ilrex replied. The timer continued. 0 hours, 6 minutes, and 12 seconds. Why didn't we detect this during initial probes? Kael'var asked. Archivist Cell answered. Because individually, none of it is significant. The starsphere shifted, showing billions of tiny nodes lighting up across Earth. Cell continued. Individually, humans are inefficient. Their governments are divided, their technologies inconsistent, their systems redundant to the point of waste. A pause, but collectively, the lights synchronized, the entire planet pulsed once. They behave like a distributed intelligence. Silence filled the chamber. The Empire had encountered hive minds, machine civilizations, collective consciousness species. But those were centralized, structured, designed. This was different. This was chaos that had learned to cooperate. Kael'var turned back to Ilrex. Test their response threshold. Deploy a probe toward inner orbit. Ilrex hesitated. General, the previous warning. Deploy the probe. A small unmanned Imperial drone accelerated toward Mars orbit. Passive sensors only. No weapons, no stealth. It traveled for 12 seconds, then space around it folded. The probe did not vanish. It appeared instantly beside the relocated Imperial vessel near Jupiter. Ilrex did not issue a command. The human woman appeared again on the main channel. You're not listening, she said. On Varix Prime, The Emperor leaned forward. "Open full dialogue," he ordered. The human did not sit behind a podium this time. She stood in what appeared to be a control room. But it was not military. No weapons displays. No command insignia. Screens showed weather systems, shipping routes, power distribution, hospital capacity, civilian systems. "Identify yourself," Kael'var said. "My name is Dr. Ilya Navarro," she replied. "I represent the Earth Cooperative Response Network. That is not a government." "No," she agreed. "It's everyone." Ambassador Trull leaned toward the transmission field. "You are a pre-FTL species issuing territorial threats to a multi-system empire. On what authority?" Dr. Navarro looked directly at the camera. "On survival." The timer reached 0 hours 4 minutes and 3 seconds. Kael'var spoke carefully. "You relocated one of our vessels without detectable energy expenditure. Explain the mechanism." Navarro hesitated. "We didn't relocate it," she said. "You did." "No," she repeated. "We asked space to move it." Silence. Several species in the chamber began speaking at once. Archivist Cell did not. Cell's internal light intensified. "Clarify," Cell said. Navarro nodded. "You've been measuring us as a technological civilization," she said. "You missed the important part." "And that is?" asked the Emperor. Navarro's expression changed. Pride. And something heavier. "We don't build machines to control the universe." A pause. "We learn how the universe already wants to behave." Ilrex's sensor officer suddenly spoke. "Commander, gravitational readings across Earth are increasing." On the main display, the planet brightened. Not with energy, with coherence. Every major power grid synchronized. Every orbital platform aligned. Every communication array phase-locked. Every quantum processor entered identical cycle timing. Billions of independent systems, acting as one. Archivist Cell spoke, voice almost reverent. "They are synchronizing their entire civilization." Navarro's voice returned. "We warned you because we don't want conflict," she said. "But your presence is forcing us to escalate." Kael'var felt something unfamiliar. Concern. "What happens when the countdown ends?" he asked. Navarro did not answer immediately. When she did, her voice was quiet. "We stop being quiet." The timer reached 0 hours, 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Ilrex's sensors screamed warnings. Space around Earth began to distort. Not violently, subtly, like heat shimmer, except it extended outward, past the Moon, past Mars. Expanding Archivist Cell processed rapidly, then spoke. "General, the distortion pattern matches the relocation event." Kael'var stared. "How large?" Cell calculated, and for the first time in recorded Imperial history, the Archivist's voice showed uncertainty. "It is expanding toward the fleet." The timer continued. 0 hours, 1 minute and 32 seconds on Earth. Dr. Navarro looked directly into the Imperial channel. "This is your last chance," she said. "Please leave." The timer reached 0 hours, 1 minute and 0 seconds, and space itself began to bend. Space did not tear. It did not explode. It did not flare with energy or collapse into singularities. It simply shifted. To Commander Ilrex, it felt like watching reality reconsider its own geometry. The stars ahead of the 7th Observer Fleet stretched slightly, their positions sliding by fractions of a degree. Sensor grids recalibrated automatically, then recalibrated again, unable to settle. Distances were changing, not rapidly, not violently, but steadily. And the change was directional, toward them. "Report," Ilrex ordered, voice tight. Local spatial curvature increasing, the navigation officer said. Gravitational field is inconsistent with known mass distribution, cause unknown energy source. None detected. That was the worst answer, because in Imperial physics, nothing happened without energy, and something very large was happening. On Varix Prime, the Grand Strategic Chamber watched the live feed in complete silence. The starsphere now showed a translucent expanding boundary radiating outward from Earth. Archivist Cell projected calculations. Distortion front velocity, increasing. How large will it become? Asked the Emperor. Cell hesitated. We do not know the limit. General Kael'var's voice cut through the chamber. Can it reach the fleet? Cell did not answer immediately. That pause told everyone the truth. Yes, the timer reached. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 43 seconds. Commander Ilrex made a decision. All ships, he transmitted, prepare emergency jump. Drive cores began charging across the fleet. Normally, Imperial vessels required several minutes to align safely for faster-than-light transition. Ilrex did not have minutes. Emergency jump in 30 seconds, he ordered. Vector, outbound, maximum range. A junior officer spoke up. Commander, emergency transition. At this charge level, risks structural shear. Execute on Earth. Dr. Ilya Navarro watched the fleet status through a distributed sensor network assembled from civilian telescopes, orbital debris trackers, and thousands of amateur observation feeds. They're preparing to run, someone behind her said. Navarro nodded. Good. Another voice asked quietly, should we let them? Navarro didn't answer immediately. She watched the timer. La 0:28. Then she spoke. Yes, she said. If they leave. Back in the strategic chamber, Ambassador Troll spoke what many were thinking. They are bluffing. This is an intimidation field. A localized spatial manipulation. Impressive, but limited. Archivist Cell's internal light pulsed sharply. No. Cell projected a new model. The distortion front was accelerating. And its structure was not random, it was adaptive. It thickened toward regions where Imperial ships were concentrated. It thinned in empty space. It was reacting. The Emperor spoke. Is this a weapon? Cell answered carefully. No. A pause. This is an environment. The timer reached 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 10 seconds. Commander Ilrex's fleet drive screamed at the edge of containment. Jump in 10, the navigation officer announced. But something was wrong. The stars were moving faster now, not the distortion, the ships. Relative position markers drifted despite zero thrust. Commander, sensors reported, local space density increasing, effective distance scaling factor rising. Ilrex understood. The space between them and their jump coordinates was stretching. They weren't moving away from Earth, they were being held. On Earth, Navarro closed her eyes for a moment. Final synchronization complete, a technician said. Global phase lock stable. Navarro exhaled. Begin transition. The timer hit. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. Nothing exploded. Nothing flashed. There was no wave, no beam, no discharge. Instead, space stopped behaving like distance. From the perspective of the 7th Fleet, Earth suddenly felt farther away, then farther, then impossibly far. Not visually, physically. Sensor pings took longer to return. Navigation solutions failed. Drive calibration models collapsed. Every measurement of distance returned different values depending on the method used. Commander Ilrex realized what was happening, and for the first time in his career, he spoke a word that had never appeared in an Imperial combat report. We're trapped. On Varix Prime, chaos erupted across analytical stations. They've altered the local metric, Malthik shouted. That scale is impossible, there's no energy source. Archivist Cell overlaid the data, then spoke with unusual gravity. They are not altering space with energy. How, then? Kael'var demanded. Cell dimmed. They are altering probability. The projection expanded. Earth's global network had entered full coherence. Every quantum processor, every power grid, every synchronized clock, every satellite mirror, every superconducting facility, every deep research array, all operating in phase. Together, they formed a planetary-scale quantum influence field, not strong enough to bend space directly, but strong enough to bias the underlying statistical behavior of reality, Cell explained. They are not forcing space to change. A pause. They are making the universe more likely to choose configurations where distance from Earth increases. Ambassador Troll stared. That is not physics. Cell responded. No, that is scale. Inside the distortion zone, the 7th Fleet attempted emergency jumps. Drive initiations failed. Not catastrophically, just unsuccessfully. Each time, probability collapsed toward safe failure states. Containment fields held. Transitions aborted. No damage, no escape. Commander Ilrex opened the channel to Earth. This is Commander Ilrex of the Aurelian Empire, he said. You have interfered with Imperial military operations. Explain your intent. Dr. Navarro appeared immediately. Her expression showed no triumph, only exhaustion. We told you to leave, she said. You have immobilized a sovereign fleet. Yes. Is this an act of war? Navarro hesitated, then answered carefully, no. Ilrex's facial plates shifted in confusion. Then what is it? Navarro met his gaze. This is a boundary. Back in the strategic chamber, the Emperor watched in silence. Kael'var leaned towards Cell. Can they destroy the fleet? He asked quietly. Cell ran projections, then answered, yes. A pause. But they are actively preventing catastrophic outcomes. Ilrex continued. What prevents you from escalating further? He asked. Navarro's voice softened. Because we don't want enemies. She looked past the camera, at something unseen. We just don't want to be conquered. Across the chamber, Ambassador Troll whispered. They're holding back. Archivist Cell responded. They have been holding back since the first message. Ilrex tried one final test. Commander, his tactical officer said, we can deploy high-energy field inversion. It may disrupt their coherence. Ilrex hesitated, then looked at Navarro. If we attempt countermeasures, he said, what will you do? Navarro did not answer immediately. When she did, her voice was very quiet. We will remove you. Ilrex's color patterns darkened. Define remove. Navarro looked at him with deep, unmistakable sincerity. We'll move you somewhere you can't reach anyone. On Varix Prime, a new calculation appeared. Projected maximum displacement radius if humans escalated. Interstellar scale General Kael'var finally understood. This wasn't a defensive field. It was a demonstration of restraint. The Emperor spoke for the first time since the countdown ended. Open Imperial Command Channel. His voice filled the system. Commander Ilrex, he said, stand down. All countermeasures prohibited. Ilrex bowed his head slightly. Yes, your radiance. Then the Emperor addressed Earth. Humanity, he said. The entire strategic chamber went still. You have demonstrated territorial control beyond your technological classification. A pause. We will withdraw. Dr. Navarro closed her eyes in relief, then opened them again. Thank you, she said. But Archivist Cell was still analyzing. And what Cell saw next caused the ancient entity's light to fracture into unstable patterns. General Cell said quietly, yes, the distortion field is still expanding. Kael'var turned sharply. Why? Cell's answer came slowly. They are not pushing us away. A pause. They are expanding the boundary. The projection grew. Past the asteroid belt. Past Jupiter. Past Saturn. And it wasn't stopping. On Earth, a new message appeared on Imperial channels. Not from Navarro. Not from any government. From humanity. Sol Regent status. Protected zone expansion in progress, and then, beneath it, Galactic Empire territory review required in the strategic chamber. No one spoke. Because the meaning was suddenly clear. This wasn't a warning anymore. Humanity wasn't defending their system. They were claiming space. And the boundary was still growing. The boundary did not expand violently. There were no shockwaves. No energy bursts, no stellar disturbances. Two distant observers, nothing seemed to happen at all. Stars burned as they always had. Planets continued their silent orbits. Comets drifted. Dust moved. But inside Imperial navigation systems, something impossible was unfolding. Distances near Sol were changing, slowly, consistently, and permanently. On Varix Prime, the strategic chamber had shifted from a war council to something far more dangerous. An uncertainty council. The starsphere now displayed a three-dimensional model of the expanding Sol protected zone. The boundary had passed Saturn. It was approaching the outer Kuiper region. Archivist Cell projected probability maps across the chamber. This expansion is not arbitrary, Cell said. The field strength decreases with distance, but the statistical bias remains measurable. General Kale Var crossed his arms. How far can they extend it? Cell answered without hesitation. We do not know. That answer is becoming unacceptable, Kale Var said. Cell's internal light dimmed. That answer is becoming common. The Emperor's voice entered the chamber. What is the strategic implication? Cell expanded the model. Within the protected zone, faster-than-light navigation becomes increasingly unreliable for non-human vessels. How unreliable? Failure probability increases exponentially with proximity to Earth. Ambassador Troll leaned forward. Meaning? Cell replied simply. Imperial fleets cannot operate effectively there. The Emperor was silent for several seconds. Then, can humans? Cell pulsed. Yes. How? We are still analyzing. Across the chamber, intelligence feeds began updating rapidly. Deep space probes near the outer solar boundary reported new anomalies. Imperial relay beacons began experiencing intermittent navigation drift. A courier vessel passing within 12 light hours of Sol reported a minor course deviation despite automated correction. Not a malfunction. A statistical deviation. Small but consistent. The universe near Sol was no longer neutral. It was biased. General Kael'var turned toward the Emperor's projection. They are reshaping the strategic terrain, he said. The Emperor replied, without firing a shot. Meanwhile, inside the distortion zone, Commander Ilrex's fleet remained intact, stable, and unable to leave. But something had changed. The spatial density around them had stabilized. Distances were no longer stretching. Instead, they had become fixed. Ilrex ran a test. A shuttle launched from the flagship. It traveled exactly as expected, within the local region. But when it attempted long-range translation alignment, navigation failed again. Ilrex realized the truth. We're inside a pocket, he said quietly. A closed region of space where large-scale movement simply refused to cooperate. Not a prison, a containment environment. Dr. Ilya Navarro reappeared on the channel. You're safe, she said. Ilrex stared at her. That is not the word I would use. Navarro nodded. I understand. Then, release us. Navarro hesitated. We will, she said. When the boundary stabilizes, Ilrex's color patterns shifted sharply. You are expanding this intentionally, yes, into Imperial territory. Navarro met his gaze. We're expanding it into empty space. Back on Varix Prime, diplomatic channels were already reacting. 3 Imperial client species had trade routes passing within 2 light-years of Sol. Their shipping accuracy was degrading. A mining consortium reported increased transit costs. A long-range military patrol had aborted a jump after navigation confidence dropped below safety thresholds. The Sol region was becoming inconvenient. Not blocked, not attacked. Just statistically unfriendly to Imperial operations. Archivist Cell spoke again. This strategy is extremely efficient. Kael'var nodded slowly. They are denying access, without confrontation. Cell continued. And forcing us to make the first aggressive move, if we want to reverse it. The Emperor asked the question no one wanted to hear. If we deploy a full fleet. Cell ran the model. Then answered. Probability of successful large-scale operation near Sol is currently 32%. A pause, and declining. Silence fell across the chamber. For an empire that measured victory in certainties, a 32% success rate was not strategy, it was gambling. Then the intelligence network delivered something new. Deep observation satellites had detected human activity beyond Earth orbit, not military formations, not fleets. Construction, the display shifted. Near the orbit of Mars, thousands of small structures were assembling, modular, simple, civilian designs, but there were millions of them: energy collectors, processing nodes, mirror arrays, quantum phase anchors. Individually, each was insignificant. Together, they were forming something enormous. Archivist Cell analyzed the configuration, then spoke. They are building amplification infrastructure. For what? Kael'var asked. Cell answered quietly. For the field. The Emperor spoke. They intend to expand further. Cell projected the growth curve. If construction continues at the current rate, the projection expanded. 5 light years, 10, 20. Ambassador Trull whispered. They're not defending a system. Cell finished the projection. They are defining a region. Inside the strategic chamber, a realization began to spread. Humanity was not building a fleet. They were not preparing for war. They were building something far more dangerous. A territory that obeyed them. Dr. Navarro requested a new diplomatic session. This time, the Emperor accepted directly. Her image appeared in the center of the chamber. She looked more tired than before, but calmer. We appreciate your withdrawal order, she said. The Emperor replied. You are altering the operational environment of an interstellar empire. Navarro nodded. Yes, why? She did not answer immediately. When she did, her voice carried something heavier than fear. Because we learned from our own history. The chamber waited. Navarro continued. For most of our existence, we fought wars over territory, borders, resources. Influence images appeared behind her. Ancient battlefields, cities burning, nuclear flashes, refugee columns. We learned something the hard way, she said. If you build power that threatens your neighbors, they will attack you. The Emperor asked, and this does not threaten us. Navarro shook her head. We're not building weapons. A pause. We're building distance. Archivist Cell processed the statement, then spoke. Strategic interpretation. Humans intend to increase operational cost of invasion until it becomes irrational. Navarro nodded. Yes. General Kael'var leaned forward. And if the Empire decides to act before your expansion completes, Navarro met his eyes. For the first time, there was steel in her voice. Then we'll accelerate. At that moment, an urgent alert flashed across Imperial sensors. A long-range observation array detected something new, beyond the expanding soul boundary. In interstellar space, small objects, thousands of them, moving outward, slowly, deliberately. The display magnified. They were human constructs. Not warships. Not probes. Seed platforms. Each carried minimal power, communication relays, and quantum phase cores. They weren't traveling fast. They didn't need to. They were heading to pre-calculated positions, to extend the network. Archivist Cell spoke softly. They are not expanding a shield, a pause. They are planting infrastructure for a future they expect to control. The Emperor looked at the projection. The outward wave of human expansion. Slow, patient, relentless. Then he asked the most dangerous question yet. What happens if another power attempts the same method? Cell ran the simulation, then answered, they cannot. Why not? Cell's light pulsed. Because humanity has already claimed the statistical baseline in this region. In simpler terms, the universe nearby was starting to prefer human influence. Inside the containment zone, Commander Ilrex received a final transmission from Earth. You will be released soon, Navarro said. Ilrex asked quietly, why show us all this? Navarro looked past the camera again, then back. Because we want you to understand something. Ilrex waited. Navarro's voice dropped to almost a whisper. We're not trying to become powerful. A long pause. We're trying to become untouchable. Back on Varix Prime, a new Imperial threat assessment completed. The classification appeared on the central display. For the first time in recorded history, a pre-contact species received the designation Strategic Denial Civilization, and beneath it, a second line appeared, added automatically by the predictive war engine. Long-term territorial risk. Extreme. Then the system generated a final projection. If human expansion continued for 50 standard cycles, a vast region of the Orion Arm would become statistically resistant to Imperial operations. Not conquered, not destroyed, simply unavailable. In the silent chamber, the Emperor finally spoke. Prepare a full strategic review. General Kael'var nodded. Yes, Your Radiance. But even as he spoke, a deeper question settled over the room. If humanity's strength was patience, and their weapon was inevitability, then what would happen when they finally decided to stop holding back? For 37 standard days, the Galactic Empire did nothing. Not because it lacked power, not because it feared humanity, but because, for the first time in its long history, every strategic simulation ended the same way: unacceptable uncertainty. On Varix Prime, the Grand Strategic Chamber had become a permanent council. The starsphere now showed a vast region surrounding Sol, shaded in shifting gradients. Green, low interference. Yellow, navigation degradation. Red, operational instability. White, statistical dominance regions, where Imperial systems failed more often than they succeeded. The white region was growing, slowly, relentlessly. General Kael'var stood beside Archivist Cell. How long until this affects major trade corridors? He asked. Cell projected new vectors, 17 cycles, and military deployment routes. 11. Kael'var's jaw tightened. And if expansion continues at current human construction rates, Cell did not hesitate. In 84 cycles, this region will intersect to Imperial sector boundaries. Ambassador Trull spoke quietly. They're not pushing us away, Cell replied. They're growing until we move ourselves. The Emperor had ordered a full-spectrum response analysis. Every option was evaluated: diplomatic pressure, economic isolation, covert sabotage, cyber infiltration, direct military action. Each option failed in simulation. For different reasons, but they all failed. Cyber operations. Human systems had no central control. Attempts to disrupt networks simply rerouted through civilian infrastructure. Shutting down a major node only caused millions of personal devices to compensate. The system did not defend itself, it adapted. Economic pressure. Humanity had anticipated isolation. Within weeks of detecting Imperial observation, they had shifted critical manufacturing into closed resource loops. Asteroid mining, recycling networks, local fabrication. Their economy wasn't efficient, it was resilient. Covert action insertion teams faced an unexpected obstacle. Human societies were chaotic, decentralized, unpredictable. There were no single leaders to manipulate, no central authority to destabilize. Even their conflicts failed to produce systemic collapse. Internal stress made them stronger. Direct military strike. This option produced the most alarming result, because the simulations didn't predict a battle. They predicted loss of control over the battlespace itself, weapons misfiring, navigation drift, targeting probabilities degrading, friendly fire likelihood increasing. And the closer Imperial forces approached Earth, the worse the universe behaved for them. In the chamber, Kael'var spoke what no commander wanted to admit. They don't need a fleet. Cell's light dimmed. They don't need one. But the Emperor had asked a different question, a simple one. What happens if we strike before they finish expanding? So a new simulation was built. Not a full invasion. Just a demonstration of Imperial authority. A single Dominion-class war group. 9 capital ships. 1 planetary suppression platform. Enough power to end most civilizations. The projection began. The fleet entered the outer interference zone. Minor navigation drift. Acceptable, they pushed inward. Distortion increased. Weapons calibration required constant correction. Still acceptable, they advanced to Mars orbit. Then the model diverged, because the human response began. Global synchronization. civilian infrastructure shifting phase, orbital mirrors aligning, quantum field density increasing. And then the probability curve collapsed. Cell paused the simulation. Continue, Kale VAR ordered. Cell resumed. The war group attempted to deploy suppression beams. 2 fired successfully, 3 misaligned, 1 overloaded, 1 failed to activate, 1 redirected into empty space. Then the human field intensified, and something worse happened. The war group began experiencing temporal jitter. Milliseconds at first, then seconds. Command signals arrived out of sequence. Weapons charged before authorization. Shields cycled incorrectly. Crew reported conflicting sensor readings. The simulation ended, not with destruction, but with loss of operational coherence. A war fleet rendered useless by a universe that no longer behaved consistently around it. Silence filled the chamber. Ambassador Troll whispered, "They can break causality." Cell corrected gently. No, a pause. They can make causality unreliable for their enemies. But the Emperor asked the final question. If we escalate further, Cell ran the final model, full Imperial response. Sector fleet, multi-vector assault, maximum force. The result appeared, not defeat. Something worse. The human field did not resist. It expanded, rapidly, accelerated by crisis synchronization. Every civilian system pushed to maximum coherence. Every energy source redirected. Every quantum node locked. The protected zone expanded outward at an exponential rate. In the simulation, within 30 hours, a region spanning 12 light-years entered high interference. Not a weapon, not an attack. A reaction, a survival reflex. Kael'var stared at the projection. They turned war into expansion. Cell answered quietly, yes. Meanwhile, inside the still-contained 7th Observer Fleet, Commander Ilrex finally received release clearance. The spatial pocket loosened, distances normalized, navigation solutions stabilized. One by one, Imperial ships successfully initiated jump sequences. No damage, no losses, no retaliation. Humanity had held them, then let them go. Before Ilrex departed, Dr. Navarro appeared one last time. "I hope you understand now," she said. Ilrex studied her. "You could have destroyed us." Navarro nodded. "Yes. Why didn't you?" Navarro's answer came without hesitation. "Because the moment we start winning wars, we become the thing we're afraid of." Ilrex considered that, then asked, "And what are you afraid of?" Navarro looked past the camera again, then back. "Being forced to prove how strong we really are." Weeks later, the 7th Fleet returned to Imperial space. Their report changed everything, because it confirmed something the simulations had only predicted. Inside the human influence zone, human vessels operated normally. Perfect navigation, perfect timing, perfect coordination. They had tested it. A human cargo craft had crossed near one of the fleet's previous failure zones. No drift, no interference. The universe behaved normally. For them, archivist Cell summarized the finding to the Emperor. "They are not altering physics universally. How then?" Cell's answer carried a tone that many in the chamber would remember for the rest of their lives. "They are biasing outcomes toward systems synchronized with their network." A pause in effect. "The universe cooperates with them." The Emperor finally gave the order. "Prepare a formal imperial address to humanity." General Kael'var looked up. "Terms of warning." The Emperor shook his head. "No." A pause. "Terms of recognition." But before the message could be transmitted, Imperial deep space sensors detected something new, far beyond the current expansion boundary. One of the human seed platforms had reached its destination. It activated, then another, then another. Across multiple vectors, the expansion rate changed. It doubled, then tripled. A new projection appeared. If current trends continued, within 2 centuries, a continuous region, nearly 100 light-years wide, would fall under human statistical influence. Ambassador Trill stared at the map. "They're not defending territory anymore." Cell finished the thought. "They're defining a sphere of civilization. Then a final automated projection appeared beneath the map, generated by the Imperial Long-Term Stability Engine. It contained only one line. Predicted outcome: Galactic Empire will avoid Sol region indefinitely. For the first time in Imperial history. Not because it was defeated, not because it was destroyed, but because the cost of approaching humanity would always be higher than the value of conquering it. And that was when the Emperor realized the truth. Humanity had not built a weapon, they had built a future, where war against them simply stopped making sense. The Imperial address was transmitted across 9,000 systems. Not encrypted, not ceremonial, not hidden behind diplomatic language. It was direct. For the first time in its recorded history, the Aurelian Galactic Empire spoke to a pre-contact species as an equal. The Emperor's image appeared on every human channel that chose to receive it. Earth's cooperative network did not centralize the broadcast. It didn't need to. Billions of personal devices, civilian relays, orbital mirrors, and community networks simply carried the signal where people wished to see it. Some watched from crowded cities, some from remote farms, some from orbital stations, some didn't watch at all. That, more than anything, fascinated the Imperial observers. Humanity did not gather to witness power. They gathered to decide whether power mattered. The Emperor spoke. Humanity of Earth. Your civilization has demonstrated territorial control through non-destructive strategic influence. You have denied imperial expansion without engaging in war. You have restrained your capabilities despite provocation. This behavior is noted. On Varix Prime, the strategic chamber was silent. This was not how the Empire spoke. Not to anyone, the Emperor continued. Effective immediately, the Sol region and its expanding operational sphere are designated Imperial Exclusion Territory. No military operations will be conducted within this region. No forced integration will be attempted. No strategic expansion will be planned. Across Earth, reactions varied. Some celebrated, some doubted. Some asked the same quiet question. What happens next? The Emperor answered it. The Empire does not withdraw out of fear. The Empire withdraws out of calculation. Conflict with humanity would not produce victory. It would produce instability. A pause. And instability spreads. On Varix Prime, Ambassador Troll whispered to Archivist Cell. That is the closest thing to respect I have ever heard from him. Cell pulsed slowly. He is not finished. The Emperor's image remained steady. Humanity, your strength is not your technology. It is not your spatial influence. It is not your capacity to reshape probability. A longer pause. Your strength is restraint. Dr. Ilya Navarro stood in the Earth Cooperative Operations Center, watching the transmission alongside hundreds of civilian coordinators. No one cheered. No one spoke. Because they all understood something the Empire was only beginning to grasp. This wasn't victory. This was responsibility. The Emperor finished. The Galactic Empire recognizes humanity as a strategic autonomous civilization. Your expansion beyond Sol will be observed but not interfered with, provided one condition is met. Across Earth, millions leaned closer. Navarro did not. She already knew. You will not expand your influence through coercion. You will not impose your statistical control upon inhabited systems without consent. If humanity becomes expansionist by force, the Empire will respond. The transmission ended. No threat, no negotiation, just a boundary. For both sides. Weeks later, the 7th Observer Fleet returned to the Sol boundary, this time, not as intruders, as witnesses. Commander Ilrex observed the outer expansion platforms drifting slowly into position. They did not move aggressively, they did not block traffic. They simply synchronized. When nearby vessels requested passage, humanity was doing something unexpected. They were allowing voluntary integration. Merchant ships that opted into the synchronization network experienced improved navigation accuracy, safer jumps, lower energy cost, higher reliability. Ships that refused were unaffected. No penalty, no coercion. Just a quiet advantage. Ilrex recorded his observation. Human influence spreads through preference, not force. Archivist Cell later added a note beneath it. They are making cooperation statistically favorable. Over the next 2 decades, something unprecedented occurred. Independent traders began routing through human-influenced space. Not because they had to, because it was safer. A mining coalition requested limited synchronization support near a hazardous asteroid region. Humanity agreed. A refugee convoy from a collapsing border system requested navigation stability. Humanity agreed. A scientific consortium requested probability stabilization for high-energy experiments. Humanity agreed. But when a regional warlord attempted to request field support for a military campaign, the request was denied. Publicly, humanity's response was simple. We don't help people hurt each other. On Vurix Prime, General Kael'var studied the long-term projections. The human influence sphere had reached 12 light-years, not aggressively, not rapidly, just steadily, but the surprising part wasn't the size. It was the pattern. Expansion always followed one rule: only where invited. Ambassador Trell spoke quietly. They're not building territory, Cell answered. They're building trust. A century passed. The Empire endured. Humanity expanded. The two powers never fought. They didn't need to, because the strategic balance had become something rare in galactic history. Not dominance, not rivalry, mutual caution. Then, one day, an event occurred that changed the Empire's understanding of humanity forever. A massive, stellar instability threatened a border system in Imperial 1. The star was entering rapid collapse. Evacuation timelines were insufficient. Billions would die. Imperial Command calculated losses. Prepared emergency relocation. Accepted that most would not make it. Then a message arrived. From Earth, we can help, the human network said. No demands, no conditions, no political leverage, just a request for synchronization access. The Empire hesitated, then agreed. Human probability infrastructure extended temporarily into the system. Evacuation jump accuracy increased. Transit times decreased. Failure rates dropped to near zero. 92% of the population survived. When the operation ended, the human field withdrew immediately. No permanent expansion, no territorial claim, no political statement, just a quiet message. We help people survive. In the strategic chamber, the Emperor spoke a sentence that would later be recorded as one of the most significant in Imperial history. They are not becoming powerful. A pause. They are becoming necessary. 2 centuries after the first warning, the Orion arm looked different. Human influence spanned nearly 100 light-years. But there were no borders, no fleets, no military bases. Only regions where navigation was safer. Where systems ran more reliably. Where accidents happened less often. Where the universe quietly cooperated a little more. Archivist Cell recorded the final long-term assessment. Human strategic model. Power without domination, expansion without conquest, influence without coercion, defense without war, and beneath it, primary deterrence mechanism. Conflict with humanity is statistically irrational. On Earth, Dr. Ilia Navarro had long since retired. In her final recorded address to new cooperative coordinators, she spoke simply. We never wanted to be the strongest civilization, she said. We just wanted to live in a universe where nobody could push us around. A pause. And if we can make that universe safer for everyone else too, she smiled. Then maybe strength was never the point. Far beyond Seoul, a young Imperial cadet once asked his instructor. Why is that region marked off limits? Did they defeat us? The instructor shook his head. No, then why don't we go there? The instructor looked at the star map. At the vast quiet region labeled Human Cooperative Space, and answered, because if you go there to fight them, a pause, you'll discover they're not trying to win. The cadet frowned. Then what are they trying to do? The instructor smiled faintly. They're trying to make winning unnecessary, and in the long history of the Galactic Empire, no civilization had ever been more dangerous than that.